thing that I'm most excited about is today's keynote speaker. We've had keynote speakers in the past, but very, very excited about Bob Chapman. Inc. magazine goes through and they do a thing where they rate CEOs on the role that they're doing. And to be one of the top CEOs in St. Louis is impressive. To be one of the top in Missouri is extremely impressive. To be one of the top in the United States, even more impressive. But Bob was voted by Inc. magazine the third best CEO in the world. I thought the same thing. Bob has also written a book on leadership. Leadership is something that he's instilled at Barry Wehmiller companies. And it's funny because one of the CIOs that I deal with asked me, can you tell the difference when you go to Barry Wehmiller? And the answer is yes. It's a different culture. It's a different environment than any place else I've seen. And again, the book, everybody should have a copy of the book. If you didn't get a copy of the book, definitely stop back to registration. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the third highest ranked CEO in the world, Barry Wehmiller, Bob Chapman.
You guys are all kind of geeks, right? You actually think we can talk about people and you'll understand me? It's interesting. I did a conference, a panel at Washington. My son did a panel at Washington University last year, and that Inc. magazine rating had just come out. And so my son gets up on the stage, and I was introduced as the third best CEO in the world by Inc. magazine, and my son gets up and said, well, Dad, you can still be better. You're only number 3. So, your kids always have a way of bringing reality into your life. So what I'm going to talk to you today is something that I've become very passionate about, which is people. And I use the word care a lot, caring about the people you have the privilege of leading. Last summer, I spoke at the Aspen Ideas Festival, a global leadership conference. And the title was exactly this, the privilege of leadership, not the job of leadership, but the privilege of leadership and the courage to care about those people who you have the privilege of leading. So I'm going to start you off. Some of you may have heard of a gentleman named Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek wrote a book starting with Why. Simon's the third largest, most significant TED Talk in the world. Simon wrote the foreword to my book, He Calls Me Dad. And Simon has gone on to wrote a book called Leaders Eat Last. It comes from the military, officers eat last. And the idea has nothing to do with eating. It has to do with serving those people you have the privilege of leading. And so I'm going to start it off by kind of showing you something our team put together, kind of blends Simon's talk and our talk. Over 130 million people go home every day feeling they work for a company that doesn't care about them. These are our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters, our sons and our daughters, those precious people we brought into this world.
We all want to feel that our lives have value. We all want to feel that our lives and the work that we do is valuable to the tribe. We all want to know that our company needs us. There's a guy by the name of Bob Chapman in St. Louis, Missouri, who runs a company called Barry Wehmiller.
What we have come to realize is that our responsibility is to create an environment where people can discover their gifts, develop their gifts, share their gifts, and, extremely important, be recognized and appreciated for doing so.
What is Bob's secret? He is obsessed about people.
We're looking for the goodness in the people whose lives are entrusted to us.
Stop saying our company is like a family. It is a family.
We have an obligation as stewards of that life to continue to allow that life to be everything they were meant to be.
And you must work tirelessly to see that they can achieve more than you could ever have imagined yourself achieving. Those are the best leaders.
If they embrace people-centric leadership, which is the responsibility to send people home each night with a sense of fulfillment, we could profoundly change the world. So I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of my journey. I was born in Ferguson, graduated from Ferguson High School, went to Indiana, Michigan, and am blessed now to be able to live in Aspen, Colorado. And my granddaughter graduated from Aspen High School about a year ago. And I was at the event. A lot of people, it was in the Aspen Music Festival tent here, a beautiful place, and 158 kids walked up to get their diploma. And as each child walked up to get to their diploma, the grandparents, the parents, the family members were so proud. And as you can see, the kids were so joyous to receive that diploma and enter the world. And from my experience, I sat there and watched this, and I got tears in my eyes because I knew the world we were sending these kids into. And that's what I want to talk to you about. The world as I have seen it in my 40-year journey professionally in business. And so I'm going to share, and this message that I'm going to share with you is not just about business. I have the privilege of speaking in the Air Force. I spoke to the 200 members of the Republican Party in Congress. I speak at Harvard. I speak at McKinsey events. I speak all in education, healthcare. This is prevalent in all aspects of our society. And when you think, in the context of this talk, think of the kind of the political landscape we have going on right now. I was speaking at Harvard before the election results, and I said, I'm sorry for this kind of political charade we have going on here with these extreme candidates. But I said, what I think has happened is people have jobs in this country. They're making a reasonable income. We're relatively at peace, but people don't feel good. And they vote their frustrations. And so when you look at what happened in the political environment, you see, if you will, the Republicans in the center of this country and the Democrats in the extreme in general, what you see is that people just don't feel good. We have this theory in our country, if we give people jobs, which means make money, they're going to be fine. What we have is I think last week was the lowest unemployment claims in 49 years. We have historic low unemployment, challenge to get good people, but people are still not feeling good, and I'm going to explain to you why. We found out from Gallup that 88% of all people in this country feel they work for a company that does not care about them. 88% of people. 3 out of 4 people in this country are disengaged in what they are doing. When I give talks to CEOs, I say to them, you all are complaining about the cost of healthcare? You are the problem. Okay? 74% of all illnesses are chronic. The biggest cause of chronic illness is stress, and the biggest cause of stress is work. So I said, you are the problem. We are not treating people with respect and dignity. It creates stressful situations. They don't feel secure. They're getting replaced. And we're self-destructing. So the solution to healthcare is not to beat up the doctors and the insurance company. The problem with healthcare is that people do not feel good because 88% of all people go home each night feeling the company they work for doesn't care about them. And so, do you know that on Monday mornings at 4 o'clock, there's a 20% increase in heart attacks? We live in a country where there's TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Get the hell out of this place and go drown my sorrows with a beer. Okay? I dream of a day when we have TGIM. Thank God it's Monday. Get away from the kids and the spouse and get back to the place, okay? That's my dream. So what we want to talk about is, and again, these are statistics that Gallup has done in surveys, and Barry Windler now operates, we're about $3 billion now. We operate all over the world. This issue is prevalent in every country we operate in. People have jobs, but they don't feel valued, okay? And when people don't feel valued, we know that when they go home at night, they treat their spouses and their children to an extent the way they have been treated for 40 hours a week. So when we look at our society today, and we see issues with the kids, when we see issues with our marriages, when we see issues in our communities, the solution is not, to me, anything anybody's talking about. And the good news is the solution is very simple. We need to create leaders. We need to create leaders who embrace the privilege of leadership, who understand that the way they treat the people in their care is profoundly important to their life. So our workplaces are killing us, okay? They're creating the healthcare crisis, and they're destroying the family unit, and they're destroying the fabric of this great country we live in and the world. So, as I said, the Mayo Clinic told us recently that the person you report to at work is more important to your health than your family doctor. Does that make sense to you all? The way you are treated at work will have a more impact on your health than your family doctor can. When each one of you took a position in leadership, did they explain to you that in that position of leadership, you were going to have a profound impact on the health of the people in your care? Did anybody ever tell you that? Nope. You got a promotion, you got a better pay, you got a better office. Did anybody sit down and say to you, are you ready to lead these people? Are you ready to allow them to be who they're intended to be? Nope, I got promoted, and I got a nice job, and I got a nice office. So we are not in this country preparing people to become leaders. We are preparing people to become managers. We have titles. Have you ever thought of the language of business? We call people bosses, supervisors, managers. Name anybody in your life that you can manage. Anybody. Name anybody in your life that wants to be managed, okay? Who wants to be supervisor, who wants a boss? Why don't we call people coaches, mentors, and leaders? Because that's what people want, okay? They want somebody who genuinely cares about them. So, this is evident in terms of our healthcare society. So, my point to you is, if you can't see it in the political climate, look at our family units, look at the frustration in our country. We are self-destructing because the way we're working is not working. If you go back to the Industrial Revolution, which has given a great deal of credit for the rise of our society, education, communities, the Industrial Revolution was not about human dignity and growth, it was about industrial growth. It was about productivity. It was about exporting products around the world at competitive advantage. And we needed people. So what did our education system do? It started providing product to the city, these countries, communities. Engineers, technicians, computer scientists, salespeople. So our universities were not created to create leaders, they were created to technical people that could fill the jobs that Ford Motor Company, General Motors, all these companies needed. It was never about human dignity. We took somebody off of a farm and we put him into a factory, so he went from having a craft to having a function. And he put a hubcap on every 15 seconds, okay? And then 13 seconds, because we needed to keep our product, and then 12 seconds. And then pretty soon we found a robot to do it, and that guy we didn't need anymore. So when you look back at the Industrial Revolution that's given a lot of credit, it is what began the destruction of our society. Because it was about economic greed and not human dignity, okay? And so what we need, and what I'm talking to you about, is we need a human revolution that can, in harmony with the Industrial Revolution, where people can thrive, where the things you do allow people to be freed of some things and grow into other things that they can do. So the way we're working is not working. What can we do as business leaders? There's a gentleman that came out to the Aspen Institute a year ago from the New York Times, and he sat among the people that write the big checks to the Aspen Institute, and he said, while you do good in the world, could we do less harm? And they said, what do you mean? He said, how? It's wonderful that you write a check to charity. And we celebrate in our society people that write big checks to say, aren't they wonderful people? They write a big check to the United Way or Cancer Society. They're wonderful people. And the question this writer said is, how did you get your money? And they didn't like that question at all. Okay? Because that very person who writes a check to the United Way goes back and treats his people like functions. Okay? But that's okay as long as he makes money and the company grows and is profitable, because we define success in our country as money, power, and position. Not a person that genuinely cares about people and allows people to thrive. So, while we do good in the world, can we do by doing less harm? And the harm, can we be good stewards of the people who we have the privilege of leading? And that's what we mean by harm. So, I have come to the conclusion that business, all of you sitting in this room, could be the most powerful force for good in the world if we simply embrace the profound opportunity we have to shape the lives of the people in our care. That's all we have to do. Not look at people as a programmer or an analyst, but look at it as somebody's a precious child that we've been given the privilege of leading, and that the way you lead them will profoundly affect their life. Why would any of you want to have children to go into business if you know for a fact that they are going to be managed, that they're not going to be cared for? You wouldn't send your kids knowingly anywhere where they're not going to be cared for. When they leave your care and go to the business world, don't you want somebody to allow your child to be who it's intended to be? So that's the power of business, if we can do it. So we need to move from management to leadership. What is management? I come to my own definition of the word management. Management is the manipulation of others for your success. Leadership is the stewardship of the people you have the privilege of leading. Leaders genuinely care about the people in their span of care, and they work diligently to make sure that those people realize their potential and go home each night feeling appreciated. That is the kind of world that we desperately need. So as Bill Urey at Harvard says, we need to move from a society focused on me to a society focused on we, where people genuinely care about each other. So when you have children and you send them into the world, that when they leave your care, the community is going to continue to care for them, and they can be who they're intended to be. So Gallup told us that they did a survey of 155 countries for the source of happiness. I think everyone in this room would like to live a life of meaning and purpose and fulfillment and be happy. They thought that they would hear that wealth was the source of happiness. They found that after people make a certain amount of income, I think it's $75,000 a year, it no longer impacts their sense of happiness. They thought it'd be health. They found out that people take their health for granted. They found the number one source of happiness in the world is a meaningful job working with people you enjoy. So what do we deny to 88% of people in this country? Okay, we deny a source of happiness to the very people that we invite into our organization. So that's a key factor. So what was I taught? You know, I went to Indiana and got an accounting degree. If you ask me why I went into accounting, I have no idea. I don't remember making that decision. The nicest compliment somebody ever gave to me is, I can't believe you were an accountant. Okay? But I did, and so I took management classes, got a management degree, and got a job in management. So what did I try and do? I tried to manage people. I thought managers had better education, better experience, and when people came to them with issues, we told them what to do. Because I was smarter than they are, right? Okay, that's why I'm a manager. That's why I have the desk, the office, the car. And what we realized is I was never taught to care about the people that I would have the privilege of leading. Never. It was, you want to be successful. It was always about me and my success. And we defined success as money, power, and position. And so I went out and followed the path that I was taught and what I found out in business. Because I found the same thing that I experienced in education, I found out in the real world. It's all about me and my success. Never about treating the people that I will meet along the journey, that I will impact along the journey with care. I was never taught to inspire. I was taught to manage people. One of my biggest learnings is you can't manage anybody, but you can inspire people to rise to their highest level of ability towards a common purpose. We call it people, purpose, and performance. It starts with a profound responsibility for the people we ask to join us around a purpose that inspires them to share their gifts fully. And then we have to create value. If we can't create value, we can't be good to the people that we have the privilege of leading. So we have to create value. So that is the world that I was taught, and that is the world I experienced. So I think, and Barry Wehmiller, just quickly, when my dad died, I was with Arthur Andersen, Pricewaterhouse for 2 years, and then my dad approached me and said, I need somebody I can trust. Would you consider working at this $18 million, pretty much broken North St. Louis company? And I said, what did you say that title was? And he said, somebody I can trust. That was my title. When I went to work at Barry Wehmiller in 1969, my dad and his secretary opened every envelope that came in every day in the mail, looking for somebody who might try and be deceiving him. That's how bad it was. But that's the environment I walked into. I worked with my dad about 6 years before he suddenly died of a heart attack. So at age 30, I inherited an $18 million company, and of course the first person I met was our banker who pulled our loans. So that's how I began this journey with this 100-year-old. It was owned by the Waymiller and Berry families in the 1890s, but my dad bought it for about $30,000. He was the only person that wanted it, and I think everybody else was right. So I think, so today, incredibly, I made a lot of mistakes initially, survived, God bless, I made them when I was young, so I could survive them barely. Today the company is about $3 billion. Our share price has gone up 14% a year for 25 years in a row. The Walton family is our largest shareholder. They own about 11% of our company. And we've done 100 acquisitions all over the world. And the company is vibrant. And we hope it will become a symbol of hope. And I will tell you, I teach every year at Washington University MBA students. And I'll just add this piece in. The thing I tell them that was the key to success, because I'm sure if I did an IQ test, I would be very average. You know, I had B- average at Ferguson. And, spent about 15 minutes deciding what college to go to because I didn't care. And survived all that. But the key to Barry Waymiller is I was able to see value where other people, my common sense was the key to our success. I could see value where other people didn't. So we've done about 100 acquisitions around the world. And the company has become a symbol of what we call truly human leadership. And I'm going to walk you through that journey, how I went from that traditional businessman I told you about to somebody that genuinely cares about the people we have the privilege of leading. So we operate all over the world, and again, our revenue's grown at 18% a year. So I started at 18 million when my dad died, and we're 3 billion now. So, enough about that. So, this is just to show you, caring about people does not mean you have to compromise the creation of value. In fact, it's the only way to create value. If today 3 out of 4 people are disengaged in what they're doing, do you honestly think people are disengaged or sharing their gifts with you fully? Okay, I don't believe they are, and we'll talk about that. So we have outperformed Berkshire Hathaway by double for the last 25 years. That just means, that's just for financially oriented people. This is not a non-profit. It is a for good organization. So I want to, our journey, I want to walk you through our journey to what we call truly human leadership. We originally called it people-centric leadership. Leadership focused on the people you had the privilege of leading. But Simon Sinek said, Bob, this is truly human leadership. He's an anthropologist. He believes that this is the way we are called to treat each other as we go through life, where we genuinely care about other people. So, again, people, purpose, and performance. It starts with the people you have the privilege of leading around a purpose that will inspire them, and then you've got to create value. If you don't create value, you can't be good to your people. So let me talk to you. There's 3 things that happened to me in this journey that shaped this leadership. The first was in 1997, I bought a company in South Carolina. It was about a $55 million company. I flew down there. It paid about $25 million for it. It's a lot of money to me, but so I was very serious. So I flew down to South Carolina in March. And we all know what happens in March madness. Flew down there and I walked into the coffee room before the office opened, and there were probably 10 or 15 people having a cup of coffee, and they were talking about what teams won the night before, where they were in their pool, how much money they were going to win. They're having fun. And I really didn't care about which team was doing what. I was observing human behavior. I didn't have any of these thoughts at the time. This is all reflection of what happened, but that was that experience of watching people having fun talking about basketball. But the closer they got to 8 o'clock, you could just see the fun go out of their body. And that day, I said to myself, in hindsight, why can't business be fun? Why do we call it work? Okay? We spend our life preparing ourselves for a professional career. Most people are miserable in what they're doing. They don't feel appreciated. And yet, so they take their skills and their personalities outside to basketball, soccer, sports, anything where they can have fun. When do people share their gifts most fully with you? When they are having fun. So that day, so I walked into my first meeting, and my first meeting was with our customer service department. We sell spare parts for machines, about a $21 million product line. And I honestly didn't have an agenda. I just wanted to meet with the people because it was an important product line. But because of what I just watched in the March Madness pools, I sit down with this group of people I'd never talked about, and out of me popped, we're going to play a game. They said, what do you mean? I said, whoever sells the most parts each week wins $100. And if the team makes the team goal, the team wins $100. They said, we can't do that, Mr. Chapman. We're organized this way, this way. And they had 21 reasons why it wouldn't work. And for every reason they had it wouldn't work, I had a reason it would. I never thought of me, never done it before. It just came out of me from watching people. And what happened? 13 weeks later, I went back. Parts revenue went up by 20%, and joy went up by 1,000%. All of a sudden, this group had a scoreboard in their room. They knew what score it was all the time. Okay, can you imagine playing basketball without a scoreboard? How'd you do? Shot a lot of baskets. Who won? I don't know, but I shot a lot of baskets. Okay, so we put a scoreboard. Every night, everybody went home and knew exactly how they were doing, individually as a team. And so they started texting each other at night. How are we doing this week? Are we going to make it? Who's winning? And so all of a sudden, I saw the same joy I saw in March Madness. And I sat at the end of the time, at the end of 13, and I sat with the group, I said, what happened? I just wanted you to have fun. I had no idea that it would change your behavior. So, oh, Mr. Chapman, I always thought I was nice to customers. But now that this game's here, I'm really nice to the customers. We had another young man say, Mr. Chapman, I bet you think it's really nice when we get these big orders that come in the mail for, $200,000 worth of parts. I said, yeah. He said, we didn't like it. What do you mean you didn't like it? Do you know how much work it was to take one of those orders, convert it into part numbers, look at the old drawings, issue that? It wasn't good news. Now, we love it because we're winning. And then another gentleman said, Mr. Chapman, before you started this game, every time the phone rang, if you could kind of be justified being busy, you kind of hope somebody else would answer, because probably somebody complaining about delivery, complaining about, why would you want to pick up a phone when somebody's complaining? Now, because of this game, we're walking down to the switchboard operator and saying, who gets what calls? Could you give me more calls? Okay? So all of a sudden, our customers are saying to us, you're calling us back so quickly. Usually it takes a few days to get back. So I had no idea. All I wanted to do was have fun. But we found out when people had fun and they knew the score, we saw a profound change in behavior. So that was the first turning point in 1997. About 2 years later, Cynthia and I belonged to St. Michael's and George Church down in Wydown, Episcopal Church, and the rector of the church was my mentor. And so we were sitting in church one day, and I was in awe of the rector of our church giving another phenomenal sermon to help inspire me to be a better person, to live a more principled life. And as we got up at the end of the church service this day, I looked at Cynthia and said, oh my God, Cynthia, Ed's only got us for 1 hour a week. We have people for 40 hours a week in our church, in our place of work. We are 40 times more powerful than our faith to impact people's life. And as I walked down the pew, a thought occurred to me that day, which I mentioned earlier. Business could be the most powerful force for good in the world if it simply cared about the people it had the privilege of leading. Because we have them in our care for 40 hours a week. And we profoundly affect their life, more so than our faith, more so than nonprofits. We are the most powerful force in our communities for sending our parents home so that kids feel bad by the parents. The final one that really put us over the edge was I was at a wedding. Two of my St. Louis friends, the Caps who own Plaza Motors and the Donnies, were having their son and daughter were getting married in Aspen. And so then I went to the wedding, and as they were walking their daughter down the aisle. Everybody, and I was right on the aisle, everybody's oohing and ahhing how precious this young lady looked. As they got up to the altar, my friend took the hand of his daughter and said, her mother and I give our daughter to be wed to this young man. He sat down and everybody was enjoying this beautiful ceremony, and they hugged each other when they sat down. And all of a sudden, as you know, by now my mind went to a different place. Having walked two of my daughters down the aisle, I said to myself, that's not what that father wanted to say. What that father wanted to say is, look at young man. Her mother and I brought this precious young girl into this world 20 years ago. We have given her all the love and care we can so she could be who she's intended to be. And we expect you, young man, in this wedding, in this marriage, that you will continue to allow her to be who she's intended to be, as I'm sure she will with you. Do you understand that, young man? That is what every father wants to say before he gives his precious daughter away to some young man. Okay? And I said to myself, then my mind went to the next spot, which is the key point. All of a sudden I realized that while we were focused on this precious young man and young woman getting married, that everybody working for us, the 12,000 people around the world that work for us, are somebody's precious child, just like that young man and young lady. So that everybody in our care is just as precious as they are, and some parent brought that child into this world, some group of parents brought the child into the world and hoped that you would be good to the parent. I hope you could stand before every parent of everybody working for you and say, I have been a good steward of your child. They have realized their potential in my care. And I hope that by that, they have been able to return home and bring that to their family, as I hope I did you. So I was interviewed for a St. Louis article a few years ago. And at the end, this writer said, name 3 people you'd like to have dinner with. You know, I never thought about that. He said, dead or alive. And I said, well, there's a guy named Ken Blanchard who wrote a book called The 1 Minute Manager. Really simple book on leadership that I read some years ago. He's a great author, great ideas. And I'd love to sit down and meet with him. So number 2, I said, how about Ronald Reagan? I said, Ronald Reagan was a man who believed in the goodness of people. He had a sense of what was good for our country. I think he inspired us to be good to each other. I'd love to sit down and talk to Ronald Reagan. And if I get 3, you know, I'm going to go for the big guy. You know, I think I'd like to have dinner with Jesus Christ. How about that? Wouldn't it be cool to have dinner with a guy that can walk on water and do miracles? You know, I thought it'd be neat. So they write in the article, and about a month later, a guy named Ken Edelman, who was the strategic arms negotiation team with Reagan, he saw my TED Talk, and he emailed me and said, Bob, I just saw your TED Talk, and Ronald Reagan would love the wedding story. I said, well, that's close enough to make it to probably Ronald Reagan. And then about a month later, I'm in San Diego at a Leadership Guru Conference, giving a speech. And a guy comes up to me and said, Bob, Ken Blanchard, I just had dinner with Ken Blanchard. I was telling him about the wedding story, and he wants to talk to you. And I said, oh, that's number 2, and I'm not quite ready for number 3. So I'd say, I would say in the 10 years I've been speaking all over the country, the thing that resonates the most with people is the wedding story. Because when you look at the people in under your span of care, okay, not the number of direct reports, not the number of employees, not the head count, but the number of people in your care, and you look at them as you would want your son or daughter treated if they were in those roles, is that the standard of care you have for the people in your care? Because if you would embrace that and understand that the way you treat that person is going to have a profound impact on their health and the way they go home and experience marriage and child raising, it would make you think quite differently about the people that you have the privilege of leading. So I'll tell you a story. So we're in this journey, and we're about to implement the ideas of lean, you know, Jim Womack's concepts of Toyota production system. We're having a conference up in Green Bay, and trying to introduce it to all of our organization as a way of not eliminating waste. One of the problems Jim Womack had in the idea of lean, because I met with Jim Womack up at Harvard, and I said, Jim, how do you feel about this movement you started all over the country? He said, Bob, quite honestly, my greatest disappointment is that 97% of all people who begin the lean journey fail to become lean organizations. And I'm profoundly disappointed that this movement hasn't profoundly changed the world. And I said, you know, Jim, from my experience, you only forgot one thing. He said, what's that? I said, you forgot the people. Because Jim studied the process, and his administrative assistant, Liz, leaned over to me and said, Bob, Jim's a professor. He doesn't understand people, okay? Because lean is all about waste elimination. How many of you, don't admit it if you could answer yes, but how many in this room are motivated by waste elimination, okay? You gotta be really weird if you are, okay? Okay? The power of the concepts Gene studied and Jim studied in Toyota was we listened to people. We listened to people and they told us how to feel better. So we were having this conference and I get an email from our VP of operations that said, Bob, there's a group of people in the plant who kind of took the initiative and did a lean event, and they had some great events on a big project with Procter & Gamble. Why don't you go out and acknowledge them tomorrow before the conference starts? So I said, well, why don't you have the team come in and update all of our executives on what they did? And so the next morning at 7 o'clock, these guys show up to work in our assembly plant, UAW assembly plant in Green Bay. And then their team leader says, why don't you guys go over and update the global leadership team on what you did? So these three guys I'd never met before, Gene and two other gentlemen, walk in the conference room like this and started explaining this event where they got together, they studied the processes, they came up with some new ideas, it improved quality, reduced lead time, reduced waste, and we shifted our time. It's all about numbers, right? That's what lean is. It's all about numbers. Just like the wedding story, I don't know why I did this, but I looked at this gentleman, Gene. I said, Gene, how did this affect your life? Now here's a guy that walked in thinking he was going to work for the day, stands up in front of all our executives. Now the chairman of the company asked him how did it affect his life. So what did he tell me? He told me the truth. He said, he thought a minute and he said, you know, Mr. Chapman, I've worked here for 30 years. Every day I'd come into work, punch my card, I'd go to my workstation, somebody'd tell me what to do. I was never asked what I thought. I got 10 things right and I never heard a word. And I got one thing wrong and I got my ass chewed out. They complained about my salary and my benefits, but they didn't give me the things I needed to do my job. So in hindsight, when I went home at night, I didn't feel very good about myself. Since you acquired our company, since we've embraced these practices, your leadership practices, and people actually ask me what I think, and I get to contribute to helping make things better, I feel valued. And he said, when I go home at night, now I realize I'm nicer to my wife. And he said, you know what, when I'm nicer to her, she talks to me. I said, Gene, we're going to have a new metric in lean. It's going to be the reduction in the divorce rate in America. Okay? If we are sending people home who don't feel valued, and they treat their spouse to some extent, because if you don't feel good about yourself, it is hard to feel good about others, including your spouse and your children and your friends. So when we are sending people home, 88% of people home not feeling valued, we're destroying the American family unit, and the next generation of kids are being raised with parents who don't feel valued. How do parents help their kids feel valued if they don't feel valued themselves? It's hard, okay? It's really hard. So that day I realized that the way we treat people who are in our care work profoundly affects their marriage and the way they raise their kids. So to this day, that was a huge turning point for me. The combination of not seeing people anymore as functions, not an analyst, not a receptionist, not an engineer, but somebody's precious child in our care, profoundly changes the way you think about people and you treat them. And to realize that the way we treat them profoundly affects their health and the way they raise their kids. The second thing that I want to mention to you is that along this journey, and again, in 1975, when my dad died, I had a broken $18 million company. And when he died, I took my education in management and I tried to take those skills I'd learned in management to fix this $18 million company. Over here, I was trying to raise 6 kids, but I didn't have any education or training to do that, so I was going to classes, parenting classes, in various organizations in our church to try and be a better father, try and be a better spouse. And in the process, I learned over the 80s and 90s that what I learned in business was management, and what I learned in parenting was leadership. Management, that's what I was taught. And leadership is the stewardship of the people whose lives you have the privilege of leading. And so I realized that, and I realized back to that comment Steve made, that when you're raising kids, you need to compliment them 7 times for any one constructive thing they could do better, or you will have an impressed young child. I learned that and been confirmed. And so what we created in our leadership, so again, I learned that I learned more in parenting kids than I did in school about running an organization. Because what is the difference in parenting? Parenting and leadership is identical. What is parenting? The stewardship of those precious lives that come into your families through birth, adoption, or second marriage, which all of you take very seriously, very special to you. What is leadership? The stewardship of those precious lives that come into your life when they walk into your building every day, that somebody's precious child who simply wants to know that who they are and what they do matters, and you have never been taught how to show people they matter. So one of the things we brought to this is recognition and celebration. When you're raising kids, you need to spend more time telling them what they did right, so that the things they could do better, they can receive without, kind of destroying their self-image. So we created the recognition events. So we have what we call the Guiding Principle Leadership Award. People whose behavior embodies the principles we believe in, and people nominate peers that have these qualities, and then we surprise the winner. So we stop the plant or the office. Everybody comes outside. I ship up this red Chevy SSR convertible, and the car's sitting out there shining with the top down, and they read the qualities of the winner. Everybody's wondering who it is when they start reading the qualities. Finally, they say, "Mary, would you come up?" So Mary is overwhelmed. She starts walking up. She's emotional. And as Mary's walking up, behind the set they have, out walks Mary's mother, her father, her 2 kids, the reverend of the church, because they want to be there when Mary is recognized for her goodness. And so I have now interviewed, I've interviewed now probably 500 winners around the country who won this award. And they tell me 3 things. It's the most significant recognition of their life. The first thing they do is call their spouse. And number 3, they take, this is not good news for the men in the room, but it's the fact, they take their mother for a ride in the car. They never say they took their father for a ride. The words that pop out of their mouths is they took my mother for a ride. So I've got behind each of those statements because I remember there's so many people. Why is it the most significant recognition in their life? Because it's from their peers. The people they work with day after day. As one gentleman said to me, it's nice to know after 32 years that I made a difference. Isn't that sad? It's nice to know after 32 years, I didn't know people felt that way about me. It was profoundly meaningful. So it's the most meaningful celebration of life. Number 2, they call their spouse to tell them they won. Those are the words they always use, but what they mean is, I called my wife, my husband to say I won. You are unbelievably lucky to be married to me. Because I am a good person voted for out of 500 people in the plant. And number 3, they took their mother for a ride. What they did is they went back. What are our fathers? Our fathers are a source of achievement in general, and our mothers are a source of goodness, okay? So without even thinking, people immediately say, I took my mother for a ride. What they mean is I went back to the person who gave me my source of goodness to say, Mom, I turned out okay. And it is unbelievable the emotion people express when they talk about going back to their mother to let them know they turned out okay, at all ages. And so this lady pictured here, Ruth, I was giving this award out in Baltimore, and this lady came up to me after and just giving that similar speech. She walked up to me and said, Mr. Chapman, I won this award 2 weeks ago. It was overwhelming, and I took my daughter, I put the top down in that car, we drove around the Virginia foothills, and I had a wonderful week. So I said, but she said, there's only one thing. Unfortunately, my mother died 2 years ago. But she said, I do want you to know that I took the car by the cemetery to show my mom. That is how badly, at any stage in our life, our source of goodness, we want to know that we turned out okay. So recognition and celebration is one of the most significant classes we teach at our university to be able to. How do you let people know that they matter in thoughtfully, timely, appropriate ways? And we teach people those skills. So we have the Guiding Principle Leadership Award, we have the High Five Award, which means recognizing those people who have helped you achieve something. We have the I3 Award for innovation. We have the H3 Award, Heads, Hands, and Hearts, for people who distinguish themselves. So we spend a lot of time, what the beauty is that a lot of people now start nominating each other. So what we have people doing, not gossiping about who's having an affair, who got fired. People are talking, who do you think's gonna win? Did you nominate Bill? I nominated Bill too. And so the beauty is, when you have a recognition and celebration event, it's like throwing a pebble into the water and you see it ripple out. When you recognize Bill or Mary for their goodness, guess what? Everybody else feels good too because they know he or she deserved it. So all of a sudden you get this environment where people feel appreciated and feel good because the company is focusing on the goodness of people through recognition. The car is only a symbol. The beauty is that people drive the car, they drive this crazy car home for a week. Their kids run out, they want to ride in it, the neighbors want to come over, they go to church, the rector comes out. And so we calculate one time on average 40 times a week somebody says, what is that car and why do you have it? Again, if we gave them a trophy, they walked around town, anybody want to know why I got this trophy? Anybody, can you read what's on this symbol? Instead, when you drive up in this red SSR convertible, everybody wants to know why you've got the gas station, the toll booth. And what you say is, well, my company's got this leadership award, and I was awarded this last week, and they said, I wish I worked for a company like that. You can't believe how it makes people feel to see somebody recognized. So leadership, recognition and celebration is one of the keys that we teach. I'll do this real quick, but I'm always asked, Simon loves me to tell, what did we do in the economic downturn of 2008, 2009? Well, we had created these guiding principles of leadership. I began walking around the country trying to share these beliefs and asking people, did we live up to these beliefs? All of a sudden the economy went down and our orders dropped by 35%. Now, the old Bob, the educated Bob in Indiana, the accountant Bob would have did whatever everybody else did. We would have laid off people. We would have had downsizing, layoffs. Wouldn't have been fun, but it's what we do in business. And we survived because we're the ones doing the layoffs, so we're okay. But because of our guiding principle of leadership, I said, well, wait, if we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people, and we let people go in the downturn, we're going to hurt people. So I was sitting in Italy when I found out that a major Procter & Gamble canceled, put on hold a huge order, and then hit us hard. And so I said, what would a caring family do if the family a member of the family had a crisis? We'd all pitch in together. So I came up with this idea, stimulated by our guiding principle, and said, well, what if we all took a week off instead of anybody having to be laid off? And so I emailed back to the United States and I said, I'll be back in a couple of days, see how we can do this thoughtfully. If everybody voluntarily takes a week off, we won't have to let anybody go. You should have seen the morale go up dramatically in 2009, massively, because everybody felt safe. A, they felt safe, and B, they felt they were helping the person they worked next to them. Because when you do layoffs, and when you look at Joe or Mary, you have to let go. Fred and Sally and Frank don't feel good because they knew Bill had just bought a house, he had a young child. So the collateral damage and the individual damage is hard to calculate. To us, it's just kind of an economic thing. It's just what we do in business. But in that environment, we knew we were going to hurt people. We did that. And you can't believe the impact it made on our company positively, because who you are in your worst of times is who you are. The fact in that horrible economic situation where everybody's laying off people, we did not send a massive message that we cared about our people. That's Simon Sinek's favorite story about what we did. But we would not have done that had it not for the principle that we genuinely care about the people we had the privilege of leading. So I think that was a huge statement. So what did we learn along this journey? Leadership is the responsibility for the people whose lives are in your care. You have to not look at them as functions, but as somebody's precious child. Somebody once said, well, what do you do about the people who don't get it? I said, treat them like you would want your son treated if he was in that situation. I said, well, that would be different. I said, it's no different. That's somebody's son you're treating that way. So I would say to you, leadership is this: look at the people you have the privilege of leading, understand they're somebody's precious child, and treat them like you would like your child treated if it was them. And that is the standard of care. We found out at every level in every company, everybody wants to know that who they are and what they do matters. And when you share that with them, you make a profound impact on their life because you send them home feeling valued, and they will treat their family as they have been treated. So that's key. The third, and we actually offer a course here in St. Louis, but along the journey, when we started teaching people, because we started a university to teach people to be leaders, one of our team members said, we need to teach people to listen. I said, well, why do we need to teach adults to communicate and listen? Well, it turns out it's the most powerful thing we do, that we teach people empathetic listening. I thought when you cared for somebody, you went over and talked to them. It turns out when you cared for somebody, you went over and you listened to them with empathy. That is the greatest act of caring. As a result of that, we have now taught something like 8,000 people around the world our 3-day intense communication course. And because of the most common statement our team members make is, it changed my life. Young mothers tell us they now know how to raise their children after they take this class. Instead of talking to their kids, they started listening to their kids. 45-year-old engineers tell us, my teenage daughters are now calling me because you're listening to them instead of talking to them. In our schools, we teach people to debate and speech, but we don't teach people to listen. So that is the most profound thing at the foundation of Trillium Leadership, is to learn to listen to people with empathy. And because that is the greatest act of leadership and caring. And again, Cynthia and I have, I think it's 8 chapters around the country now, doubling every year in size, where we teach this class in communities. It's called Our Community Listens. And then we have a St. Louis chapter now, and we have free classes, the 3-day class, about empathetic listening. And it's there's a waiting list on every, I think we're going from 100 classes last year to 200 this year. There's a waiting list virtually on every class. Because I live in Aspen, and 1,000 people in Aspen have taken this class. And there's still a waiting list. The police officers are taking it, the mayor's taking it, the school teachers are taking it. It is it's a profound change in your life because it's the greatest act of caring, which is to listen. And again, I want to leave you with this incredibly important statement. The way you run your responsibility profoundly affects the people whose lives are entrusted to you. And all I'm saying to you is you need to learn to care. And care is not being any more than parenting, meaning being nice, and being responsible, so the people in your care can discover their gifts, share their gifts, be appreciated for doing so, and return home each day feeling that they matter, which is what Simon talked about. So I think, again, Simon's statement here, which I love. Simon said, in the military, we honor those who give themselves in service of others. And in business, we give bonuses to people who sacrifice others in service of themselves. Do you understand that? Okay, Hewlett Packard lays off 5,000 people, share price goes up. Good job. Okay, you got your share price up. Yeah, I had to do it. Okay? And he got a bonus. He got his bonus because they made their numbers. Okay? We can do just the opposite in the real world that we do in the military. The first thing they teach in the military is officers eat last. That has nothing to do with what you eat. It has to do with the profound responsibility of men and women in your care in the military. So Simon nailed that. And I think, and Raj Sisodia, who wrote the book on Whole Foods, Conscious Capitalism, my co-author, his statement was he thought conscious businesses were all about the product. Having seen Barry Weinberg, he decided conscious businesses are all about the people. The product's important, but no more so than the people who create that product. So I think our guiding principles that and this came about during the Enron, Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton scandal time when leadership was viewed in our country very low, and we defined success as money, power, and position. We came up with the expression, real success is measured by the way you touch the lives of others. Okay? Going back, we need to move from society focused on me and my success to society where we want everyone to grow and develop into their potential. And you as leaders are very instrumental in doing that. So we create, can we do less harm while we do good in the world? Yes, we can. Okay, and the good news is, in all sincerity, is that this message you've heard today, I get the privilege of giving this all over the world now, and Harvard is actually considering right now making the Barry Windler case study a mandatory case for all business students at Harvard University. McKinsey, the world's leading consulting firm, two of their senior partners from Amsterdam last Thursday and Friday were in our plants in Wisconsin, and their expression after they talked to our people and saw the culture said it gives them hope for humanity. Also, the good news on there's a piece here. We have what we call now the Barry Windler Leadership Institute. I'll just go back and say for all you non-readers, this is the Cliff Notes version of my book. If you just take this picture, you have to read the book. Okay? About people like Simon Sinek and Bill Urey, World Peace Negotiator, and McKinsey people. Unbelievable people start hearing about coming into our plants, talking to our people, and said, and virtually everybody said, I've never seen anything like this in my life. And that's why we wrote the book, because they urged us to share this with the world, because they felt we'd been given a gift that could change the world for you and for everybody you know, where people genuinely feel cared for. And about 2 years ago, we decided that our shareholders shouldn't fund us changing the world. So the team had the idea of creating an institute that would go out and look for people who believe what we believe and want to join us on this journey of caring. And believe it or not, the first year they had a goal of to cover the cost, doing 1.2 million, they did 1.4 million, which was 16. In 2017, they had a goal of doing 3 million, they did 3.5 million. And this year, 18, they're going to do $8 million of leadership development. And you know who their largest client is? American Airlines. American Airlines will spend with us $5 million this year because the chairman of American Airlines heard the talk you just heard. And he had me come and speak to a senior leadership team, and we are all hands on deck we just were teaching their top pilots last year how to care. The chairman of American Airlines said to his leadership group at a meeting last week, it has profoundly changed the way he thinks about his role in running 125,000 people, the largest airline in the world. The second largest client is Myers Food Stores, which has got 72,000 people in the upper Midwest, based in Grand Rapids. They're the 16th largest private company in the world, and they're spending $1 million with us this year because we've trained all of their store managers to care. Now we're moving down the chain, so they're embracing it. And then finally, last week we were at Shell Oil Company in their corporate headquarters in Dallas, and their new plastics plant production, a $10 billion plant being built in Pennsylvania, having listening sessions, which is the first step. The first step to listen to people, and then you need to invite them on the journey. So I would say to you that we are clearly making progress. It's encouraging. Between Harvard's case study, which is now being studied around the world, McKinsey's case study, we're beginning to raise the voice of caring. Genuinely caring about the people, not just the product, not the financial results, but people, purpose, and performance. So I hope this resonates with you from your experience. It is simply a matter of embracing the profound privilege of leadership and looking at those people in your span of care as somebody's precious child and treating them like the way you would like your child treated if they were in your span of care. So whether they're in our home in our span of care or in the work and others, that we care about each other and we move away from the hurt that exists in this country that's expressed in our political climate, where people don't feel valued. So thank you for the privilege of sharing this message with you. We're proud of our roots here in St. Louis, but we feel a calling now to share this message everywhere where people will listen, and the beauty is people are listening all over the world to this, and it resonates. I have never had anybody at McKinsey, Harvard, Ernst & Young, anywhere, some of the top people in leadership debate anything I just told you. It is just so far away from the way it is today that they don't know how to get there. And that's what we're helping companies do. So thank you very much.